On September 12, 2023, Los Angeles, California police officers responded to a call to a luxury apartment located in downtown LA. Upon entering the apartment, they came across a female body tied up inside of a refrigerator. The body was identified as Maleesa Mooney, a 31-year-old real estate agent who had not been in touch with her family for days, which was really unusual for her. How did this happen and why? And what did the surveillance footage reveal? Continue watching to find an answer to these questions. Hello strangers, welcome back to the Strange Bar and Grill. Today we have another heartbreaking story. This is the story of Maleesa Mooney. Now let's rewind to the beginning of this heartbreaking story. Maleesa Mooney was born on October 16, 1991, and she had everything going for her. She was smart, beautiful, and had a promising career in real estate. She had just landed a job at a major company and moved into a luxurious apartment in downtown LA about a month before her untimely death. But Maleesa wasn't just a rising star in the real estate world. She also had dreams of making it big in the modeling industry. In fact, she had already done some modeling work in the past and was eager to get back into it. But there was so much more to Maleesa than just her professional aspirations. She was also a devoted sister to a well-known local singer, and she always made an effort to keep her family close. According to Jordine, Maleesa was a dreamer who always saw the best in people and wanted to make the world a better place. Tragically, Maleesa's life was cut short on September 6, 2023, when she went out with some friends to a local bar. They ended up crashing at her place until the early hours of the morning, and Maleesa even had a video call with her cousin later that day, but after that, she disappeared without a trace. At first, Maleesa's family didn't think too much of it. They figured she was just busy with work or hanging out with her new friends in LA. But by September 10th, Maleesa's sister was starting to get really worried. She hadn't heard from Maleesa in days, which was completely out of character for her. She did what any concerned sibling would do. She called the police and asked them to check on Maleesa at her apartment. When the cops arrived at Maleesa's place, they knocked on the door, but they got no response. They briefly considered breaking the door down, but there weren't any obvious signs of a crime, so they decided against it. Instead, they told Maleesa's sister that everything looked normal and that Maleesa would probably turn up soon. But as the days went by with no word from Maleesa, her family grew more and more desperate. Finally, on September 12th, Maleesa's mom couldn't take it anymore. She called the LAPD again and pleaded with them to get back to the apartment. This time, the cops used a spare key from the building manager to let themselves in. At first glance, everything seemed fine. But then they noticed something was strange. There was food on the kitchen counter that should have been in the fridge, and when they looked closer, they saw a pool of blood under the refrigerator. Fearing the worst, the police opened the refrigerator and made a horrific discovery. Inside was Maleesa's body, gagged and tied up with electronic cords. She had multiple injuries all over her body and was only wearing her underwear. It was a scene straight out of a nightmare. The police immediately launched an investigation and sent Maleesa's body for an autopsy. The medical examiner found that she had suffered from blunt force trauma to her face, head, back, and left arm, which suggested that she had fought with her attacker before she was killed. The autopsy couldn't determine an exact cause of death, but it was clear that Maleesa had been the victim of a brutal homicide. And to make matters worse, the toxicology report showed that Maleesa had alcohol and drugs in her system at the time of her death. This suggested that she may have been in a vulnerable state when she was attacked, which only added to the tragedy of the situation. As the investigation unfolded, the police discovered that Maleesa's killer had not only murdered her, but had also stolen her phone, her laptop, and a designer bag. This led them to believe that the motivation for the crime was financial. But perhaps the most chilling detail of all was the fact that the killer had taken the time to hide Maleesa's body in the fridge, grab her keys, and lock the door behind them on their way out. This explained why the first officers on the scene hadn't noticed anything suspicious. When Maleesa's family learned about her death, they were absolutely devastated. And as if losing their beloved daughter and sister wasn't enough, they soon started receiving disturbing messages from Maleesa's phone, sent by the killer themselves. It was a cruel twist of the knife that only deepened their grief and anger. Maleesa's sister, Jordine, took to social media to express her heartbreak and demand justice for her sister. In an emotional Instagram post, she wrote that she never imagined she would have to make such a tragic announcement and begged for anyone with information to come forward. Meanwhile, Maleesa's cousin Bailey spoke out about how out of character it was for Maleesa to go radio silent, saying that the family knew something was wrong after a week of not hearing from her. Interestingly, Maleesa's family also claimed that she was about 2 months pregnant at the time of her death. However, the autopsy did not confirm this, and the authorities have no idea why the family made this statement. As the investigation continued, the police turned to surveillance footage from Maleesa's building for clues. They discovered that on September 6th, the day Maleesa was last seen alive, she had been captured on camera walking around the building. But the real breakthrough came when they reviewed the footage from September 7th. On that day, an unknown man was using Maleesa's key to enter the building's elevator. He was carrying plastic bags, which he brought into Maleesa's apartment. The police immediately zeroed in on this individual as a person of interest and started working to identify him. Shockingly, just 2 days after Maleesa's body was discovered, another young woman named Nichole Coates was found dead in her apartment less than a mile away. Like Maleesa, Nichole was an aspiring model, and her body was discovered in her bedroom. However, there were no obvious signs of violence, which initially led the police to treat the two cases as separate incidents. But as the media got wind of the story, they couldn't help but to speculate about a possible connection between the two deaths. Some outlets even suggested that there might be a serial killer on the loose in LA, targeting young, beautiful women with dreams of making it big in the entertainment industry. The police, however, were more cautious in their assessment. They noted that there was no physical evidence linking the two cases aside from some superficial coincidences. They urged the public to let the investigation run its course and not jump to conclusions. When Nichole's autopsy report came back, it showed that she had died from an accidental overdose of alcohol and drugs. This seemed to support the police's initial assessment that the two deaths were unrelated. However, Nichole's family refused to accept this explanation. Nichole's mother spoke out in an interview saying that the idea of her daughter dying from an overdose made no sense. She demanded answers and said she was outraged that the police were no longer treating Nichole's death as a crime. Nichole's aunt echoed these sentiments, pointing out that Nichole's body was found with one leg extended, as if she had been kicking someone in self-defense. Despite the family's pleas, the official ruling of Nichole's death remained unchanged, and the police did not reopen the investigation. This only added to the sense of frustration and despair that Maleesa and Nichole's loved ones were feeling. Meanwhile, the police were still working tirelessly to identify the mystery man from the surveillance footage in Maleesa's building. They released the images to the public, hoping that someone might recognize him and come forward with information. Finally, on November 3rd, 2023, the police made a major breakthrough in the case. They arrested a 41-year-old man named Magnus Daniel Humphrey in Minneapolis and extradited him back to Los Angeles. Humphrey, it turned out, had been living with Maleesa in her luxury apartment at the time of her death. The exact nature of Humphrey's relationship with Maleesa is still unclear, but what is known is that she had opened her home to him and allowed him to stay there without asking for anything in return. According to the prosecutor assigned to the case, Maleesa had trusted Humphrey and welcomed him into her life, only to be brutally betrayed in the end. As more details about Humphrey's background came to light, it became clear that he was no stranger to the criminal justice system. He had a long history of convictions for crimes ranging from assault and harassment to fraud and drug possession. In fact, he had been arrested multiple times in several different states over the years. Despite Humphrey's checkered past, Maleesa's family had never heard of him before and had no idea he had come into Maleesa's life. They were still grappling with the shock and grief of losing their beloved daughter and sister, and the news of Humphrey's arrest only added to their pain and confusion. As of now, Humphrey is being held without bail in a California prison, awaiting trial for Maleesa's murder. If convicted, he could face life in prison without the possibility of parole. a fitting punishment for such a heinous crime. But even if justice is served in this case, it will never bring Maleesa back or erase the pain and trauma that her family and friends have suffered. Maleesa was a bright, vibrant young woman with her whole life ahead of her, and it's an absolute tragedy that she was taken from this world in such a brutal and senseless way. But what do you all think? Who was this mysterious man? Is this the case of no good deed going unpunished? Why did Maleesa open up her door to this seemingly random stranger? Do you guys believe the story? Was this man living with Maleesa? Or is this a tall tale that he spinned? But there are witnesses that said that he is living there. This is a strange one, guys. Let me know what you guys think of this one in the comment section. Were they dating? Was just a friend she met, maybe at a job, and she wanted to help him out while he was down on his luck? I don't know. This is a weird one. Let me know what you guys think of this one in the comment section. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today. If you're new to my channel, then consider subscribing. Leave a like, leave a comment, and remember, I've been drinking, but ain't been driving. All right, be good, be safe.